In this section, we are going to talk about the responsiveness of our scenes, camera, and the aspect ratio of these corresponding elements. As an examples, I provide a web page that are completely actually responsive, and it is not static, it is dynamic. And as you can see, whenever I change the aspect ratio, it feels change the positions, change the ratio of the camera and the scenes. So let's discuss. First of all, we are, as I mentioned in the earlier videos, there are two ways to actually organize your code. First, you can actually organize your code in functions, or you can use the class and actually follow the class-based programming. And as I provided here, I actually created classes, and as you can see, there are multiple examples, and there are multiple source code that have a specific standard. But generally, when you are going to use the functions and not the classes, there is actually initial the function called init, which represented the initials block of your code, and there is no changes in our previous codes. I just actually move these previous code into the init functions, and I wrote the add the event listener, animate, and so on. And as you know, you have to actually call this function at end of your code to actually calculate these processes and actually run your code by the compiler. So when we are going to use for example, capsules in different scope of our code, for example, we use the capsule in init functions and in animate functions. And actually, as you can see, there are multiple elements that are actually same in these two functions. So I actually create a global variable instead of the actually local variable. Okay, if you want to actually see for example, error, you can use the actually developer tab inside your browsers. And for example, you can see that actually the code going to inside the infinite loop, and as you can see, we are going to receive an error per second. And these are actually basic fundamental of JavaScript. I just mentioned it to people who have less knowledge or less information about the function-based programming or class-based programming inside the JavaScript. So for so on, actually, let me see. Okay. As you can see here, we are going to create a code. We are going to actually create a functionality to apply this responsiveness to our actually scene. In the init functions, there is actually camera and render element, and as I actually mentioned in our first videos, there is a ratio related to the inner width and the inner height of our windows, and we are going to pass these values, pass this ratio to our camera to initialize our camera. And also in the renderer, we are going to set the size of the renderer actually windows to the exact same of the ratio that we are going to pass to the camera. So if I divide it by 2, the renderer ratio, as you can see, the size of the renderer will be divided by 2 and actually become the half. And this is because of the responsiveness, but we are going to try it later, that you can see that the renderer set size and the aspect ratio of the perspective camera in your cases should be the same. So we need, in order to create the functionality of responsiveness, or the responsiveness of our actually that specific part that we are going to use, the Three.js, we need the functions that's going to calculate the size of the windows each times, and we can use actually add event listeners, and in the first line, I use the windows.addEventListener. On the resize, it's going to call on the Windows resize function that I earlier defined in the next section of my code. So, as you can see, as I mentioned up there, you can see that whenever the size of the windows changes, it's going to it's going to invoke these functions. And in these functions, I actually simply write a code that's going to update the aspect ratio. It gets the windows.innerWidth and divided by windows.innerHeight, and set it to camera aspect. And each second the add event listener going to calculate. It's going to calculate these on Windows resize, on the resized functionality. And after that, we need to actually update the camera matrix. And let me delete. And as you can see the difference, it's just going to actually subtract the width and height by the size. It's not going to update the project matrix. So we need to use the camera.object project matrix, and afterward, as you can see, the responsiveness of our website going to work fine. And the last option that we need to consider, as I earlier mentioned, the render set size need to be exact same of the camera aspect ratio. And as you can see, if we don't update the render set size, it's just going to update the camera, and it's not going to actually update the render size. And let's actually discuss this problem that I earlier mentioned. If we divided this ratio by 2, as you can see, at the time that we are going to use the responsiveness element, actually on the Windows resize, it's going to actually divide it by dividing these two elements by 2 and set the size to the renderer.